Hey, welcome to this episode of The Complete Advisor. So glad you're here. I'm really excited. We've been diving in on the show. We've been diving into what I call the How I series. And what we're doing is we're having conversations with advisors specifically on how they do a certain thing. So one of the things that we've been diving into is client event, group events, so workshops, seminars. Are they dinner seminars, lunch? And today's episode, we're going to talk to Frank Oliver, great friend of the show. We've had him on a couple times if you want to look back in the catalog. And we're going to talk specifically about how Frank does his workshops. And he does things a little bit differently than some of the other advisors we've had on. You know what, heck, everybody does something a little differently. Frank is very successful. He's got an amazing practice, focuses on a couple different things, but he's doing his workshops in-house, which is interesting. So we're going to have a conversation about what happens months before, what happens day of, and then what happens the next day after the event has concluded. Take a listen. You don't want to miss anything. Also, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments, but let's go on into the conversation. And for those of you that don't know Frank, Frank's out of Colorado. I'll introduce you a little bit here, talk to you. Developer of his own system called Time.
Right.
And you do an amazing job across the board. You're registered, you're managing assets, you're helping literally thousands of people retire successfully, which is awesome. And one of the things as advisors that we all have is, how do you get in front of more people? What's your method? And so many advisors have their specific ways of doing things. And yours, you've been doing successful workshops, which of course are different than seminars. And so what we wanted to do is we're going to peel back, and thank you for doing this. We're going to pull the curtain back. We're going to peel the onion a little bit, and we're going to dive into like the nitty gritty of how you're actually doing these things. Okay, so let's start first. Tell for those people let's talk a little bit about your bona fides. Tell us a little bit about your practice.
So we've been in business for 20 years, and when I started, well before Creative One, I was literally doing workshops with Allianz brochures in the back of my trunk, scraping the ketchup stains off of them, meeting people at their kitchen table, having the dog bite my leg,
nice.
All of those days. And I actually got into the business doing workshops, doing seminars. So my very first experience was watching some of my friends at a Golden Corral in Colorado do a workshop. And instead of doing what everybody else did, writing down all the specifics and the particulars, we already had that printed out. We didn't do PowerPoints. We had handouts for everybody before the PowerPoint day, before the slide decks. And I wrote down every story about Martha. I wrote down every joke. I wrote down everything that made the workshop hum, that made people laugh and engage and understand the stories. Everything else, all the details was already on the handout. So I could read the bullet points and carry on the workshop. But I took a little bit different approach and tried really, really hard to connect with the client on a personal level.
I have a dream of, this is a weird one, but do you remember overhead projectors from school?
Yeah.
I would love to do a presentation using one of those.
So talking about the bona fides, Ed Slott, his Master Elite IRA group, Ed Slott still uses an overhead projector.
That is awesome.
Now he's got a great presentation skill about him, and he does have a very professional demeanor and just his approach and everything. But if he's got an article from Wall Street Journal that he just found the night before, he always has an overhead projector. So during the class, he can lay that dude down on there. So
that is awesome. Okay, so you started doing workshops. The practice is built up. You on another shameless plug for the other two episodes we did together. One of them we talked about making clients feel appreciated. We talked about the limo, which is great. So folks, you got to go back and check out that one. The other one we talked about was charging a fee, how you charge a fee, which is another, I think that one's essential listening if you are an advisor and you're doing assets under management. But let's talk about how you currently are getting in front of prospects. So what's the main driver now?
Well, we're still doing workshops. Probably 50% of our business now comes from referrals, just due to the fact that we've built it up to 600 to 800 clients that we manage now. Nice. But we still do workshops. So we do a series of either dinner workshops, or we'll do them at a library or a community center. We've done some at community colleges. I bought a building that's about 6,000 square feet, and the entire lower level is dedicated to workshops. We have 2 PowerPoint screens down there.
What do you prefer to do? Do you prefer to have them at your home base, probably?
I love to do the workshops at the office. We don't have to coordinate. We can set any time we want. We're not working around anybody else's schedule. It works out very, very nice. And we've had some great results at the workshop or at our building. The first workshop I did, we actually set every appointment, closed every appointment, and brought in about $2 million in annuity business. Now, will that ever happen again? I don't know. But it was amazing how well it worked at my office. Now, things kind of ebb and flow a little bit, like you and me were talking on the way over here.
Yeah.
Sometimes restaurants is the way to go, sometimes community centers, sometimes libraries, and sometimes my office works. So we just kind of rotate through those.
So you rotate. Do you, when you look at your schedule and you're planning, do you plan out for the year, or how far ahead do you look?
We used to try to plan out for the year. It just seems like something always got in the way on that. Maybe you win an incentive trip that gets in the way. Or honestly, maybe you need to bring in more appointments, or you're overloaded and you need to slow that down a little bit if you don't. From a staffing perspective, you want to be efficient with the people coming in. So we'll go out about 90 days, and I don't know if that's the right answer, but that seems to work good for us.
So let's go, think back to the last one you did, the last set. Okay, so how far in advance, so as you were planning out the last set that you did, how far out are the invitations going? How are you doing the invitations?
We start about 30 days in advance on the invitations, and our last workshop was probably the biggest attendance we've seen in a while.
Nice.
We went back to a restaurant, used an Italian restaurant in Loveland, and we had about 40 attendees at each session.
Wow.
So that was pretty good.
How did you reach out to them?
Yeah, we used a mail piece, and we used Creative One's Facebook. And quite honestly, it was a really good beta test, and we've done this in the past, but this one was pretty substantial. Facebook crushed it.
Really?
Facebook was much larger. We had many more attendees on Facebook than we did the mail piece.
So you know what's weird about that? So I am now 51.
Yeah.
I know I look like I'm
You
28.
don't look it,
I know,
Dennis.
right?
My gosh.
But I'm starting to get, so I'm getting all the mailers now.
Right.
And,
I do too.
And so I'm looking at them.
Welcome.
And but the craziest thing is I was talking to our chief marketing officer, because I'm like, I'm a little older than he is, and I'm like, maybe we should be looking. I don't know. I'm curious to see what numbers look like on it. We'll have to keep a close eye on it, because I look at those doggone things. Now, I don't know. I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, well, you are in the industry, so that's probably why you're looking at them.
Right.
And then she said, why are you saving this? And I'm like, well, I'm taking it to the office.
Right. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I have to look at them, and every now and then I'm like, ooh, that place does a good steak, but I can't ethically. I just couldn't go.
Right.
That'd be wrong.
Right.
Okay, so you did an A/B, and Facebook crushed it, which is great, because our team is really good at Facebook.
They do a nice job.
So you get the sign up. So how did you select the restaurant?
We've used this restaurant several times. It's centrally located in the zip code that we wanted to mail to, not too far from our office, so the drive time's 15 or 20 minutes. Famous Italian restaurant.
Nice.
I usually don't choose an ethnic type food, like an Asian or a Mexican, as much as I love those foods, but not everybody does. But this Italian restaurant's quite popular, and it works well.
It's pretty hard not to like.
Who doesn't love lasagna and spaghetti, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Chicken parm.
Yeah. Okay. So they must have a nice meeting room.
They got a nice banquet room for us to use. The staff is phenomenal. Parking is great. So one thing we always look at when we're looking for a venue is not only the quality of the venue, but the ease of access.
Yeah.
The parking, you don't want to walk too far. You don't want it to be confusing. We're in Colorado, so if the weather's inclement, you got snow or rain or something like that going on, you just don't want them coming in a bad mood. You want the entire process very, very easy from start to finish.
Let's talk day up.
Okay.
So when it comes to setup, what are you doing? What is the staff doing? What goes on the day
I
up?
try to do as little as possible, to be quite honest, and not because I don't enjoy doing it or because I'm that guy, but I just need my mindset in a certain way. And even though I've done this presentation 100 times, 200 times, 300 times, I still focus on it. I look for maybe some relevant slides, something I could change, and I rehearse it. I go over the PowerPoint 2 or 3 times that day.
So in the time before, you're at the office, maybe? Or are you at home? Or?
Oh no, I'm at the office, and then honestly, for this last one, I actually did go home just to get out of the hustle bustle of the office, because the phones are ringing, people are walking around, there's papers being shuffled, people coming in and out the door. Yeah, so I went home and just relaxed and just chilled out and studied the PowerPoint, make sure that my lines were on point, and then we have the office go start to set up the workshop.
Okay.
And if I'm good, I'll roll in and help them set up. But honestly, they'll take care of that for me.
So I think that's really important, because I've talked to some folks that have said like, no, I just run a normal office day, and I think that you're spending money on this thing,
Right.
and you want your ROI. So why not give the absolute best?
Totally.
A player on any given Sunday is not going to go and hit the weight room before he hits the hits the floor. So, okay, so you're getting in your mindset. The staff is getting everything set up.
Right.
Typically, in a normal situation, how early are you showing up, and are you hanging out by the registration table, or are you keeping yourself separate?
We get there 2 hours in advance, which is probably a little overkill, but I've had technology failures before. I've had to run out and buy a computer. I've had cord failures where I've had to go to Radio Shack and buy cords, Best Buy and buy cords. That dates me, doesn't it, saying Radio Shack, right?
I think there's one.
Is there still one around, right?
I think they sell steroids now.
Something like that, yeah. Vitamins. In Colorado, it would be something else.
Yep,
exactly. So we get there 2 hours before, and we get everything set up, and we get the sound going. We always play music when they come in, so it's not that awkward silence, which
What do you
I
like
hate.
to play?
We play 70s Mellows Gold.
I love it.
Gold.
Yacht Rock is the
Yacht Rock is good
favorite.
as well. Absolutely. And sometimes I'll meet and greet the people. I think it's a friendly thing to do. That way they're not standoffish during your talk. They're like, okay, this is Frank. I shook his hand. Seems like a nice guy. I'll engage with him.
Are you meeting them? Are you standing by the table as they sign in, or are you meeting them in the room?
I'm meeting them in the room. So our sign-in table typically is in the room, especially if it's at a restaurant.
Gotcha.
So Tyler will do all the sign-in. We do all that digitally off of his phone, which is really nice, and hands them a folder, make sure that they're seated comfortably. If we do it at a restaurant, then immediately they take the orders as they come in. So as they're coming into the restaurant, those orders are taken. And then that way, by start time, we're within 5 minutes of being on time, which is tough to do when you got to feed 40 people.
Yeah.
So we coordinate that very good with the restaurant. We have custom menus that we choose ahead of time. We put the name of the firm at the top. We put time, taxes, income, money, and estate on the menu.
Nice way to work that in.
Yep, exactly. So I think you owe me $1 every time you say it.
No, I owe you. If I say...
You owe me $1 if you say
it. Yeah, okay. What are the time?
Yeah, exactly.
Time. There's another
there you
$1.
go. There's another $1. Go ahead.
So, dumb question. A series of dumb questions. So one, what kind of table setup are you doing? Are you classroom style, or are they in rounds?
I used to do classroom style. I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I think the classroom style is a little more efficient, but we did rounds last time just due to the crowd that we had. Just the restaurant thought that would work better. So I followed their lead because they do a lot of workshops.
Did you like it?
I did.
Why? Why did you like it?
I think it was a friendlier setup. I think it just created a friendlier atmosphere versus the sterile boardroom schoolhouse setup.
I could see where that would change as somebody coming, I could see where that would change my mindset into a friendlier, I can see that. I could see the mood change there.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking, they were communicating with one another. It just turned it into a friendly event. And I think that changes people's mindset when they listen to you. It just keeps them in a good mood. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
You know how people naturally will sit as far to the back? And then it's kind of, you got that weird...
It starts off that way.
Yeah,
the
that
weird section
space.
in the middle or the weird section up front.
Do you nudge people forward? I guess with rounds that would be kind of a weird... I don't know how that would work, but...
We don't. We let them sit where they want. And then if you find that there's only one seat left at a certain table, that's where we'll kind of control that a little bit. So if another couple comes in, there's 2 available seats where people will spread apart and then leave 1 seat in between them. Kind of like you do at the bar, So we do try to control it so there's always 2 open seats. But outside of that, we don't monitor that too much.
When it's time to start, are you mic'd up or are you?
I'll mic and I'll not mic. It just depends on the size of the room and the size of the crowd.
Do you have a preference?
I actually feel a little awkward with the mic, but I do think it works nice.
Lavalier though, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then we got a monster speaker that we put in the back of the room so the people in front of me, standing right in front of me or sitting right in front of me, they can hear my voice. But then the people in the back, the speaker's coming out. Yeah. It keeps you from yelling and screaming. It's easier on you for sure.
Yeah, I'm a soft talker, so I prefer to. I can if I have to project, I can, but I'd rather have a. For me, I'd rather, like this morning, I'd rather have a clip because then I can just talk my normal.
Yeah, it's a little exhausting if you have to talk at a loud tone for an hour and a half.
Oddly enough, I get angry. You wouldn't believe it because I'm so chill. But if I have to talk loud, like in a crowd, or like at home, I'll get mad because I'll start to get angry because I have to raise my voice. And
Right.
Yeah.
Dennis anxiety kicks in.
Dennis
right?
anxiety kicks in. So how was it then? So this is interesting that you're used to using the classroom. Do you think you'll use rounds going forward?
If the restaurant offers it. But a library or community center probably doesn't. So schoolhouse actually works fine for that.
Yeah. So you had with the rounds, do you guys set up a screen? Or did they have one for you?
The restaurant had a screen, but we have our own equipment. And we usually bring it with us anyway, just in case their screen doesn't drop down or their light bulb burns out on their projector. So we always have backup equipment anyway.
I'm a huge believer in what you said. I'm not a smart tech person, but I can figure most everything out if I have time.
Same.
It's another $1. But if you have enough time, you can solve something, but you can't get it back. And there's nothing worse. You see this literally all the time. There's another one. We should have like a little thing. Beep.
We should ding, cha-ching, cha-ching.
But you see this so many times. Oh, no, the word cannot be not said. Where it's getting close. The clock is ticking down, and for some reason, people seem to panic more when tech isn't working. It's just like this pressure
Absolutely.
cooker. Yeah.
Absolutely. Remember the first podcast I did with you with Ed Slott and the tech went out within we were 5 minutes until going live. Yeah, that was a scramble.
Yeah.
It does. It unnerves you a little bit. So that's why we start 2 hours early. We bring backup equipment. It's easy to do. It's just a projector and a screen.
Yeah.
You just start early. Yeah.
So how was it then from work in the room? Are you somebody who is static and you're just standing up there in front of the screen? Or are you kind of weaving your way through the tables? How was that for you?
Do you think I can be static?
I don't think so.
There's no way I can be static. I try to be because I do move around a little bit too much sometimes. But I do not walk around the room very often. I don't want questions during the workshop. And I think the more that I engage, the more questions that are going to come out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it could just be a fear of mine, but I really just do not want people asking me questions.
You know what? I think going into questions, you have no idea what rabbit hole you can go down.
That's
and
right.
when people ask you questions at an event, they tend to ask something that is so ridiculously specific. They don't give you all the facts.
That's right.
And then you're having this conversation. I had a conversation once at a presentation where it went back and forth. I was on the road for a company, and this guy was questioning what I had said about a 1035 exchange in front of a room of about 200 people. This is for advisors.
Right.
And
that had to be fun.
We went back and forth, and I said, you know what, for time's sake, let's talk about this during the break. So he argued with me the whole time. At the break, he came up and he said, this is like, how there's the front page and then there's the retraction, like on page 36.
Right.
In front of everybody, he's telling everyone that I'm wrong. He comes up to me during the break and he says, hey, I thought about what you said and you're right. And I'm like, hold on, get the mic over here.
Right, and get him on stage quick. Yeah.
But you can rabbit hole so easily.
Very easily. I was talking to Mark about this last night on the way back from his workshop.
Mark Roberts, who has been on this podcast repeatedly. Go ahead.
You're right, exactly. And he had some questions come out of left field several times. And he's like, my mistake was I forgot to tell everybody no questions. He's like, it's just so hard to do because you come across sounding rude, like you don't want to engage with them.
Yep.
And their question's not important. And I'm like, well, here's what I do, Mark, is I make a joke at the beginning. And I say, we want to make sure that we get everybody out of here by midnight. And then I pause. And everybody laughs. And I'm like, seriously, though, if we do want to get you out of here in an hour, 90 minutes, however long my workshop is, I'm going to ask that you don't ask any questions because your question's not important to the person sitting next to you. And if we really do not want to be here until midnight, no questions. I'll be happy to stay afterwards. You can call me on the phone, whatever we need to do to get this question answered, but just not at the workshop.
Great way to get an appointment.
It works great, yeah. It is a great way to get an appointment. And they laugh. They don't think you're rude by saying that. So there's certain ways to tee it up. And I actually have a slide. My first slide is turn off your cell phone and no questions. And that's more for me because I will forget to mention that, and then I'll get caught. Going down a rabbit hole with somebody.
Yep. Oh, it's so easy. It's so easy.
Absolutely.
And it's fun to engage with people. So the next thing you know, you've gone off.
And if you open that door, the person next can ask a question. It just doesn't stop. So
okay, so you're doing your presentation.
Right.
How do you have any as you're working the crowd? and meeting people. What are you looking for as you're standing up there, as you're presenting? Are there things that you're looking for as you're looking through the crowd, eye contact with different people, anything that?
You look for the people that are engaging with you, that are smiling, that are shaking their heads, that are focused on you. You try to get the ones that are not engaging to engage, maybe by staring at them and directing your voice towards them.
Yeah.
That way they'll look at you, because not that they're going to become a client anyway, but you just don't want those optics at the workshop. You want everybody engaged. That way the person that's interested sitting next to them will stay interested versus maybe following suit with that one person. I'm reluctant. We just started doing this again, but I've been reluctant over the years to set appointments at the workshop.
So what do you? Okay, so let's get there in just a second.
Right.
But as you're working the room, have you ever had to? When I was talking to Todd about this, Todd Wooten, another great podcast on how he does his seminars.
That is a good podcast. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I owe you another $1.
There you go.
Have you ever had any crowd control issues? Maybe somebody who's disruptive.
Like a heckler?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had another financial planner with their client in the meeting. And the financial planner, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. So I took an emergency break. We're going to take 5 real quick. Give everybody a chance to stretch, go use the restroom, grab a glass of water if you want, refill your water. And I actually had to pull the advisor out of the room and to have the conversation, what are you doing here? It's like, well, you could come to one of my workshops if you wanted to, Frank. I was like, well, that would be fine. I wouldn't, for one. And for two, if I did, I wouldn't be heckling you at your own workshop.
What was he? Do you remember what was he?
It's probably been 10 years, and I do not recall, but
Unbelievable.
But that was, yeah. So you do have to take control. You have to control the room. You're the boss. You're in charge. You're the one that's got 15, 20, 30 years experience at what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
And you bought everybody dinner for
And you buy them
sakes.
dinner, exactly. Thank God that doesn't happen very often. We usually have some good crowds, some good attendance, and we really don't have too much heckling. But you just have to, you got to be prepared. Make sure you're quick on your feet and shut it down before you poison the crowd.
Went with a client. And that's a good point. Yeah, Todd, in Todd's, he talked about how he had to punt somebody as well.
Yeah.
But, you got to do what you got to do. Excuse me, I get choked up when we talk about finances and stuff. Okay, so you're working the crowd. You're seeing, what do you like to see? I know you like to see engagement. Any other tales where you're
I like to
hey,
see them
that guy's
taking
gonna-
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're taking notes, then they're serious. You're bringing up topics of interest to the prospect if they're taking notes. To me, that's really important. And we have a few interactive sessions during the workshop where we use some buckets, the tax deferred, the taxable, and the tax-free bucket. And I'll stop and I'll make them write down what percentage they have in those 3 buckets.
Nice.
I think that's really important. That creates engagement. We have a brochure that talks about the time process. And in the middle there, it's just got 2 note pages in there, so I have them open that up, and it says taxes, income, money, and estate, and then they can take notes. So if you see them taking notes on
That's a
the
good sign.
buckets or inside the brochure, that is a good sign.
What other interactive? Do you do much interactive? So you mentioned the buckets. Do you try to engage them any other ways?
No, we tell a couple stories. I think it's important to open up with a heart-touching story. We had some clients that before they became clients of ours, they had already kind of set in their financial course and done some things incorrectly, and then had some bad situations arise because of that. Like one of my very first clients, she lost her house at 72 when her husband died and was homeless. We had another client that did some poor estate planning, worked at a hospital for 35 years, went in for surgery at that hospital, never made it back out. The poor estate planning she did, not on my watch.
Exactly.
Created about a $250,000 tax error. On an IRA tax bill. So we tell some of those stories, and I think that gets people engaged.
Good
and
caution.
It's real. Exactly.
Okay, so you got the demographic. You got them there. You've engaged. You're watching who's doing what. You get to the end. Thank you. Good night. So you said you haven't been asking for appointments. How do you wrap up the evening, first of all?
Well, we have not been asking for appointments. So, I'll tell you how we wrap up is we actually have the office team hand out the appointment and feedback form. right?
Gotcha.
I think that creates some engagement.
Well, what do you say when you're rapping? Are you just dropping the mic and running, or what are you doing?
No, just thanking them for their time. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you guys got some great value out of this. We put a lot of work into this. I hope that you guys appreciated it. We know we appreciate you being here as well. And before I go, Tyler and Brittany or whoever is there, they're going to hand out some feedback and appointment forms. Okay? You're not obligated to anything, but just put your name, address, and phone number on there. Check yes if you're interested in a consultation, and check TIME, taxes, income, money, or estates.
Nice.
Boom, boom, boom.
Hey, that spells time.
That's right, the dollar, right? And then down at the bottom to keep it simple, because nobody really, I mean, even though we got our phones, not everybody always has their schedule, and sometimes that age bracket's not super technology savvy. We just put Monday through Friday, morning, afternoon, or evening, have them circle one of those. And then I tell them that Tyler will follow up with a phone call and an email and get you set to come in and see if there's any recommendations we have for you. I also tell them if they're not interested in an appointment, there's an opt-out box on there. Just check no. That way we don't bug you and harass you. And
Check no, and the waiter will come with the bill.
Right, exactly, right. To check no and then give me $100, for your meal. But and then they fill out the sheets, and the office walks around and collects the sheets when we're done. And last time, Tyler walked around with a laptop and our CRM and actually set appointments at the workshop. So
okay, so you say what you just said. Thank you for being here. They're blah 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 blah. You say good night. Do you stick around, or do you get out
I
of
do
there?
not,
Good.
because then I think the questions are going to start, and it could turn into a different event. One thing that I'm fearful of is when I started in the industry, if you were going around asking for appointments, and you'd have that one big, loud, boisterous guy say, "I don't need anything. I'm good. I do this myself." I always thought we were going to have the domino effect of the person sitting next to him maybe not being quite as strong-willed, saying, I don't need it.
I don't want to look like it.
And then the domino effect starts, right? Because they don't want to look like they need your service, because this guy doesn't need your service. Why would I need your service? So when we set appointments last time, which is the first time we've done this in a while, we just wanted to give it a try. We collected all the sheets. We wrote the table number on the sheets. And then Tyler went around, and we had table 1 on top, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And we took out all the no's. That way you're not trying to set an appointment with somebody that says, "I'm not interested," and then you get that domino effect starting. So we only had the yeses. And so everybody that wanted an appointment, it worked great. It really did. It worked good. So everybody that Tyler approached was a yes, and it just changed the entire dynamic of the room. So I think it did work. It did work very well for us.
Nice. So you're probably going to do it again?
Yeah, I will. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I was a little scared of that guy poisoning or tainting the room by saying, "I don't need your help," but everybody hears that. But I think if you do it correctly and take the no's out of there, then and just have the yeses, that works quite well. We were calling people back after, and it works. It's not always the easiest game chasing these folks down.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Dumb question, but they're not eating while you're presenting, right? They're eating after?
They eat after.
Okay. Yeah. Do you take a to-go box?
I eat before.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you head out, evening successful, presentation, curtain closes. Next morning, what happened?
Next morning, the ones that did not set an appointment or just didn't have their calendar in front of them, Tyler says, "I will give you a call tomorrow." So we get to the office. Tyler's taking all of the yeses and the appointments, putting them into the CRM, doing email confirmations to these folks. And then the ones that did not set that night, he's on the phone calling them to set appointments.
Love it.
Yep.
So then the process is you try to get him in how soon?
We try to get him in within a week or two. I think after that the impact of the workshop starts to fade quite a bit.
Yeah.
They start to forget some of the important details that we talked about at the workshop. And honestly, in a month, they're going to get hit with another 3 mail pieces.
Yep.
And go to one of those. So you want to get them in as soon as possible.
So then they go through the process. They either become clients or they don't. What do you do with the ones that, what happens to those folks that don't set an appointment?
We put them in the CRM, and we still drip on them. So we use Snappy Crack and through Creative One, and we'll still put them on a drip. And honestly, some of those turn around down the road and become clients. If they are adamant about not being communicated with, we'll put them in the CRM and just put do not contact on there.
Nice. So is there anything that when you think back of how you've done your workshops, Is there anything that you thought would really just kill it that didn't?
Yes. Yes. 80% of everything I tried, honestly. So you don't really learn from your successes. You learn from your failures.
Yeah.
I don't learn from the client that was a lay down in the office and wrote me a check for $1 million. You learn from the ones that you struggle with. So honestly, overcomplicating the process, trying to be the smart guy in the room, trying to build such a complex mousetrap to create such a good plan for these people.
Yeah.
Not only in the workshop, but in the office. That failed miserably. And I'm not, it's a little disappointing, to be quite honest, because you really want to do such a good job for these folks out there and give them some information, a nugget that has a lot of value that can help them out. And I think in that process, what I've learned is that less is more, and I've always taught myself that. I've coached myself that. I've taught other people that less is definitely more, and I think it is. We really wanted to up the quality of the prospect, and our quality of prospect was fine anyway, but we were really just trying to get to a point in this stage of my career where instead of meeting with 20 people, I can meet with 5 or 10 and have a much higher quality client. And what you realize is we all have a lot of experience in this industry. We understand financial planning. We understand investments. We understand Roth conversions inside and out, right? No matter how smart that client is, it's probably just not their skill set, or they wouldn't be there anyway.
That's right.
They'd be a financial planner, and they definitely wouldn't come to your workshop. Hopefully the meal's not that important. So no matter how successful they are, this is still an area that they're not highly experienced in like we are. So you do have to keep it simple for them.
All right. Well, let's flip it then. Okay. What's something that you thought would not be a big deal that people just loved, or was wildly more successful, and you're just like, wait, they love that? Is there anything that pops into your head?
Honestly, I would have to say it's just the software that we use at the office. So getting off the workshop track just a little bit, and we do showcase the software just a little bit, some screenshots at the workshops. But when the client's in the office, and it's just my strong suit, I think we build a plan. So I go over an example plan with them using Retirement Analyzer through Creative One. I show that at the office. That's my probably 75% of my entire first meeting is just showing them, how we're going to answer the difficult questions that are running through your mind right now.
Well, I think we'll have to do a separate recording on Retirement Analyzer. Yeah. Shameless plug, it is something that we do have here at Creative One on retainer for our advisors.
It's an amazing tool.
And I know it's had a big impact to you. So the one thing I love about you, Frank, amongst a million things, including the lining of that jacket, the sugar skulls. Yes, this is on camera. If you can see that is unbelievable. I love that jacket.
Dennis's favorite jacket.
This is my favorite jacket, man. So I love the fact that you're always looking, tweaking, and learning. Because a lot of advisors, you get stuck in your ways. And when we were talking this morning, like my dad said, it worked so well, I stopped doing it.
Right.
So you had the opportunity last night, totally putting you on the spot again. You had the opportunity, you went out with another top advisor for creative, and he was doing a workshop, and you went and you're just checking out just to see how somebody else does things. Any big takeaways? We don't have to name names, but any big takeaways that you're like, oh, interesting?
Yep, just what I just mentioned. Less is more. Keep it simple. Everybody's heard of KISS, and you hate to say keep it simple, stupid. It doesn't mean that people are stupid. They're just not educated in that area, right? So keep it simple. You don't have to rush through 1,000 details trying to, check every box, because these people probably came to get 4 or 5 boxes checked. You don't need to check 12 of them. Sometimes it's just a little bit of overload. And we pride ourselves at not doing that, but I think we always try to improve our processes, and sometimes to improve our processes, we think if we give better and more information, that's improving our process. I'm not convinced that that's always true. I think a very basic, simple workshop, and just being confident in your presentation skills and having some quality materials is very adequate.
I think another thing that happens is we give the same presentation. Did I just kick your toe?
I think so.
We kicked books. No, that was a toe touch. I stretched my legs out too. I think that we end up forgetting, we do the same presentation, and then you're just like, it feels stale. People feel it's stale. And it's actually just you because you presented it.
Right.
And it's almost like here in Kansas City when we bring people in, we always take them for barbecue, and it's like, oh, man, barbecue again? But it's like, well, that's...
Sure.
it's what the people like.
Can't wait to go back to Jack Stack. Right?
Jack Stacks or
Rise,
Q39.
Q39. You've never taken me to Q39.
We'll take you there because they have, in my opinion, they have the best burn ends in the city.
Oh, I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard. Nobody ever takes me there, but they keep telling me how great the burn ends are.
Side thing, they have a potato salad that has like tarragon, I think is what it's called. Amazing. Jay is probably going to want to cut this from the episode, and I'm going to say, no, people need to know these facts.
I just had to wave at Shoppy that walked by, so that was my head bump to
there we go.
David
Nice.
Shopmaker. Yeah.
Okay, so as you look back, if you were going to give advice to a young Frank Oliver at the start of his, he's just about to start his first set of workshops.
Okay.
Any words of wisdom you'd give him?
Drink a glass of wine before every workshop. You may want to cut that as well. Just make sure that you know your material inside and out. It doesn't have to be overly complex. I remember when I started doing workshops, I was scared to death because I thought that I was probably the least educated person in the room because I was very young. We started off, in the annuity industry. And I was really concerned that, from the looks I was getting in the room, that they were calling me out a little bit. They weren't. They were just focused. They enjoyed the content. They enjoyed the material, but their serious look was misconstrued by me. And my very first workshop was pretty successful. We wrote $750,000
Nice.
In annuity business.
And if we're talking 20 years ago, that's
that was a lot of money back then. Yeah, exactly. So it was a nice day for me. But yeah, just keep it simple. You know more than the people in the room. Make sure the material's good, and just be organized and on time.
Nice. I just, out of respect, because I know I have to get you to the airport.
Right.
That's why I glanced down at my watch. Folks, I normally don't do that. Well, that's cool. You've crushed it. Your practice continues to just amaze, and you're helping so many people, especially in a ridiculously competitive marketplace. Everyone says their marketplace is competitive, but I know that yours is
not in Colorado. Yeah, it's worse in Colorado. We're very competitive out there. So there's an Edward Jones office on every corner in my town, and we only have 70,000 people in town. I think 65,000 are Edward Jones advisors.
They must, when they do their door knocking, there's one guy ending at the block, and
they don't want to walk too far, so they just put an office on every corner, so they don't have to walk very far.
It makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So excited to see how the next year goes for you. Always great to have you on the podcast. We're going to have you back to talk Retirement Analyzer.
I'm in.
Boom. Frank, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, man.
And then lastly, of course, it goes without saying that I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, mainly because that way you'll be notified whenever we drop a new episode. We've had some fantastic episodes, and I'm excited about what we get. The feedback from this one is going to be unbelievable.
I hope so. And you gotta drop the plug for the Time Blueprints.
Oh,
like and subscribe on our new podcast.
Hey, that's right. You have
pretty cool.
How do you like doing podcasts?
I love it.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I've talked to some very successful advisors that it's been a very important component of their practice. So you should talk more advisors into doing these.
I think we'll talk about that all the time.
There you go.
Nice. Frank, thanks, man.
All right, thank you.